Welcome to Finding Joy Live. I am so happy to be here today with you guys and with Tanielle Brew, who is a doctor and a coach, which amazes me. I'm going to jump right into today's topic because I think it's one that almost everybody can relate to, and that is how burnout can motivate you to reprioritize, refocus, and get the right person in charge. So, welcome, Tanielle.
Thank you so much for having me here. Talking about burnout and refocusing and prioritizing yourself is my favorite topic. So I am just so happy to be here to discuss this topic.
Yeah, I'm really glad you had the time to do it and everything. So that's super. I know you have a practice that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, but also you have a personal relationship to this topic. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I can talk about that now if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I,
let's
yes,
start there.
like many people, and at first I normally say in healthcare, but just many people in general, because as I talk to just people living life, I feel like we all have a burnout story. But yeah, so like many people, I was definitely burned out. I thought I was working my dream job, doing obesity medicine. I just got married. On paper, everything looked beautiful, but I on the inside was miserable. The thought of going to work, I literally, when I was in the driveway leaving to go to work, would have heart palpitations. And though I was still great with my patients, I never let that go down. I just wasn't enjoying the experience anymore because I had little control over my schedule. It was not much flexibility. There's a lot of different factors. And I just wasn't enjoying it. And I did not know exactly what to do or how to do, but I was lucky that I was able to have different coaches that helped me to remember me and to remember that I wasn't just a physician. I wasn't just this person who provided care. I had a lot of different skills and a lot of different talents. And it was when I really started to dive into those talents, like when I stopped working full time, I did a yoga teacher training. I was like, everyone's like, why are you doing that? Because I want to, because I want to, this is my space to explore.
Mm,
As an adult, we
mm.
don't have a lot of time to just explore what we like to do. It's not related to work. So I just started to explore that. And then I explored meditation. And I previously already finished my coaching certification because I was going to do that with my job. But honestly, that ended up saving me just for myself.
That
So
is
when I
so
really
great.
started to dive into the self care part of it, that was really what got me out of my own burnout and how it helped me to recover from my own burnout experience.
Wow, that is so great. So, one of the things that you kind of talked about there was really about not being fully present, not being plugged in to the
Yeah.
feelings of what you're going through. But let me ask you, do you think burnout also has a component of doing too much of things, or does that not play into it often?
100%. 100%. One of my stress coping mechanisms is to do. I am a doer 100%. I remember actually I noticed myself doing this last week when I was stressed about something else. I said, "Well, you know what? Instead of me actually feeling my feelings, let me just fill up my day with 1,000 different things I can do to distract myself." So when I
Mm.
was in the midst of my burnout, I was on every single committee. I had started a new practice doing the obesity medicine. I was doing all these certifications. I was doing so many different things. And a lot of that was so that I did not stop long enough to feel
Mm.
because I unconsciously probably I knew that if I stopped long enough to feel, I would have to make a change.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about this. I feel like it's really important to sort of mention that because I think we do that by default. I think we're trained
Mhm.
to do that by our society, right? It's like you got to get up and do your thing no matter how you feel, and all those things that happen when we're little sort of train us into default mode that makes the problem worse.
Yes.
Right? Because if you just stop for a minute when you're not happy, when you go like, oh, things are going on, I should be paying attention to. I'm not finding joy regularly. I don't feel fully present all the time. Then it wouldn't become burnout, right?
Mhm.
Because you would just deal with it. You would go like, oh, okay, maybe I need to feel that feeling. Maybe I need to make small changes in my life. But when it goes like a train, then it leads to massive changes, which can both be good and bad, can't it?
Absolutely. And even my good coping mechanism, so I still had some great things. Like I was going to Zumba, I was doing those things, but my relationships with them became to the point where if I missed a Zumba class, I was like, oh no, I can't miss Zumba because
Mm,
I need just that little bit of joy to make it through the day. I remember one time my husband wanted to take me out on like a weekend trip. And he was my fiance at the time. He wanted to take me on a weekend trip. And I was like, I can't go because I have to go to
mm,
Zumba. I have to do this. Like I was so regimented in things. I thought that I was being present with it, but really it was just me trying to hold on to any little semblance of happiness
mm,
because, again, trying to avoid actually dealing with the problem that was going on. That was that burnout. That was me not feeling, not being present, not speaking up for myself, not asking for
mm,
what I needed, not having those hard conversations, not really actually seeing what it is I like versus just doing what I thought was right, doing what people wanted me to do. That was where a lot of
mm.
things that came up.
And you really bring up the point that when we do that, we miss these opportunities, right? What a perfect story for that, right? Here was this beautiful moment that could have happened, right? We could have gone away for the weekend, been with each other, had a new experience and new space. Like there's some joy in those things, right? Those are the
Mhm.
textures of life. Um, and we just miss it. We miss it when we're in the like, oh, please let there just be something good about this day
Mhm.
space.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. That is great. Thank you for sharing that. Um,
Absolutely.
so let me ask you, well, tell me a little bit about what the journey was for you from the burnt out space to a place where you felt fullness in your life.
Absolutely. So, one, I had to recognize what was going on. So, my recognition was noticing what was happening within my body. Luckily, I'd already had many body practices like the going to the Zumba and the meditating. And in general, I feel like I'm a joyful person. I wake up literally like this in the morning, smiling, happy, ready to go. And when I realized I wasn't doing that, I'm like, something's off. Um, I put in my letter of resignation in April from my previous job, and I ended that in June. And the first thing I did was finally go on my honeymoon. I got married in October, and in June we finally went on our honeymoon. So literally, my last day of work Friday, Saturday we went on our honeymoon. So that was the first
Mm,
part. I feel like you always got
mm,
to celebrate. It doesn't have to be your honeymoon to celebrate, but celebrate any transition. So that was my big celebration, was to go on my honeymoon. So that was that part. And then right after that, it was me taking time to just sit and kind of be with me without it being, okay, I know 50 steps ahead. Because that's how, as
mm,
a physician, as a type A, even though I try not to think of myself as type A, but I truly am, I already know 10 years down the road what's going to happen. I had to
mm,
learn how to just be with what's going to happen like in 30 minutes. What's happening with me right now, instead of planning months and months and hours in advance. So that was kind of step one for me. Um, and that was a very uncomfortable space to be in, being someone who that is not just what I did. And me doing that yoga teacher training really taught me how to be able to just sit with myself and sit with my breath and sit with my body and know that that's okay and not to run
mm,
away from it with planning and all that. So I honestly took a good 2 months of me just kind of sitting with the feelings that came up and the grieving process that occurred with my life changing. I know we people talk about grieving with death and all that, but with the transition of what I thought my life was going to be to what it is, even though it's beautiful and I love how my life is now, there was still grief because it's not what I expected. So really being able to sit with the waves of emotion that came with that grieving process. And I had definitely had coaches that supported me through that. Yes, I also had a therapist at that time too that supported me through that process, that just allowed me just to be, not have to have like, oh yes, it's all fine, it's great. No, there were days where like, this sucks, and I don't know if I made the right decision. But then I remember, yes, you did. You got to rely on yourself. Let's look at what you actually like to do. What do you enjoy? What are your values? Not
Mm,
what, your skills, like what do you actually like?
mm,
um, and being able to kind of really sit and develop that for me. And when it came time for me to finally find another job, a part-time job outside of my coaching business, I was able to, one, already know what my values were, the need for flexibility, the need for autonomy, being able to just have a low stress, even though, working in healthcare, just having a low stress type environment, not having the pressure to see patient back to back. I knew that at my core. So then I was better able to make different decisions career wise when it came to
mm.
finding other opportunities. And so many came to me when I knew what my values were versus just like, oh, I'll just take a job. No,
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
able to have discernment. That's the word. I was able to discern what I wanted versus what was just out there, because there are plenty of opportunities, but I knew what was right for me and what wasn't right for me. So that was a big part of my journey. And then another part of my journey was also, I kind of talked about this with coaching, bringing in support. The
mm,
support wasn't just the coaching, the support was also my family, because the they also kind of had their own grieving and processing, because I switched up the game. I switched up everything. So
yeah. People can
I
be very, very attached to your identity. It's
very,
true.
very
It's
much
true.
so. Very,
Yeah.
very much so. So kind of being able to sit with them as they were kind of untangling me from Dr. Me, from just me by myself, and being okay with me taking this time to discover what I wanted and having the confidence that I would make the right decision. So
Yeah, it takes a lot of, there's a lot of faith in that relationship. There's a lot of trust you have to have or develop in those relationships, because basically you're standing in the unknown. They
yes,
have to trust that wherever you go from the unknown is going to be good for you,
yes,
which is hard to do. It's hard to let
yes.
go of people. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
all of our relationships shifted because the trust built for me, and then my trust for them also changed and shifted. So all of my relationships have changed in such a good and beautiful way. I appreciate them.
Yeah. That's really great. You know, even, I'm not even sure you finished that story, but I will tell you, you brought up so many important points in recognizing what is burnout in us, right? I mean, it's obvious to recognize it when I can remember a time when I was so devastated by something that I literally had my friend call me up and say, just take a shower and call me back. Like, I couldn't figure out how to function, right? So
Mhm.
it's obvious when you're in that spot, you're like, okay, I'm in trouble, I need some help, right? But there are so many spots along the way that you brought up where you can sort of say, oh, I'm running from one thing to the next thing in my life. I feel rushed. I feel under pressure. This is not going to end well, right? You can't think
Mhm.
like somehow it's going to change magically on itself, on its own,
Exactly.
you know? And I think a lot of times we do. We get into these situations and then we go like, well, it'll be better tomorrow. It's not permanent, except that our participation is so important to the it's not permanent part, right? You got to make different choices. So
Absolutely.
interesting. That's great. That's great. I also love that you brought up scheduling and planning, because I think I'm a default scheduler. You know, I'm one of those people. I need a plan. Um, but I certainly, there have been times in my life where, like you described, I leaned on that as a sense of structure that everything would be okay. So instead of that internal knowing, I replaced it with like, there's something on the calendar, I'm okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody just behave like this. We'll go to the thing at that time. Everything's good. And those are real indicators that you're headed for something you're not going to like it. Stop now. Don't bother to wait until you're completely burnt out, right?
Yeah. I think there
Yeah.
needs to be a balance. Yes, things need
Yeah.
to be scheduled. Like I'm a big believer in scheduling the essential. So my self-care is scheduled before anything else at the beginning of every month. So actually I'll probably do that today or beginning and end of every month. I schedule all my personal training. I get massages and acupuncture all the time. I schedule if I need a doctor's appointment. Like those major essential things I know that I'm going to need just to function and be my best self are already scheduled and done.
Mm.
But like you said, and like I said, if it gets to the point where you're leaning on that just for this kind of sense of normalcy and really using it almost as an avoidance tactic, that's when you have to look at it. So
Mm.
I think having that experience with my husband, when I saw his level of disappointment, and at that time, I didn't even register it. I was just like, look, I'm not going anywhere because I'm not missing Zumba.
Mm.
But then when he was able to communicate to me that, so I planned a weekend for us and you're not coming because of a dance class,
Yeah.
something clicked. So having
Yeah.
sometimes that external view of things can be helpful when you're in that state of just go, go, go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I love that you bring up the grieving piece of it because a lot of times people are like, but I'm making a good change in my life. And you're like, yes, but you were someplace and now you're in an unknown place. You don't know where you are and you're ready to be in the unknown. And you're going to be someplace else, but you're not there yet, right? And for most people, we haven't practiced being in the moment. So we're constantly sort of looking back and going like, why am I not a doctor anymore? Oh, that's interesting. I am a doctor, but I'm not doing how do I reconcile all of this? And for me, I've done that twice actually in my life where I've gone from a good career where I was, kind of at the top of both of those careers. I was in a really good position. And I said, okay, that's the end of that road for me. I want to go back into the unknown and figure out what's next. And
Mhm.
the people around you and your own self go like, oh, what's going on? What are you doing? Right. So I love that you bring up that grief part and the being gentle with yourself. Really, go get a massage and relax. Everything's going to be okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And the
important.
gentleness, and I had to listen to how I speak to myself because that was a huge thing. I noticed that I was not very compassionate about the choices that I made, whatever. It just wasn't there. That
Mm.
self compassion wasn't there. So I had to learn how to give myself grace. I had to learn some of the things, like if something came up, I'm like, oh, you should have done that better. Oh, you could have, like, I just had all these negative thoughts. And I had to consciously and actively literally stopping that thought and then replacing it with a new thought. To the point now, it's
Mm.
hard for me to bring up the previous negative thoughts because it's
Yeah.
automatically these newer thoughts. My gratitude practice helped with that. The journaling helped with that. But honestly, it was me saying these affirming things. As soon as I heard the negative, and of course I couldn't catch them all, but as soon as I heard some of those negative thoughts, I immediately stopped and started to switch those around, adding in a reframe.
Yes, such an important thing is that it all starts with us, right? And
Mhm.
that there's so many tools, there's so many great tools, right? Like you said, a gratitude practice, an affirmation practice, a meditation practice, like a yoga practice. There's so many amazing tools in the world. There's thousands of them, right? We can't even name them here on this podcast all, but they are of no use until we do that first part that you're describing, which is to decide to let go, to
Mhm.
surrender to something better, to say whatever I'm doing now, I'm willing to reconsider it and be open.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a pivot. That's a real pivot. Yeah.
It's a real pivot. It was a scary pivot, but it's a needed pivot. I've learned that just because it's scary doesn't mean that I shouldn't do it. It's just, oh, it's new. Sometimes it's scary just because it's new and I'm not accustomed to it. And that's
Mm,
okay. That's okay.
mm.
I've done new things my entire life. I just remember all the new things I've done in the past and I'm still here.
That's right. That's right. It's only new the first time you do it. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I always tell myself the first time I do something is probably the worst time I ever do it. And that's okay. It's the worst time. After that, I'll do great. No problem.
I like to listen to a particular person who talks about marketing, a topic, not this topic at all, but he always says the first 42 times you do it are going to be terrible. So just do them. Just go ahead and do the first 42 and then you'll be all right. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
You'll
I
start
even
to get
think of that.
better.
I think of that like when I think of when I start doing Instagram reels. My no, even when I start doing Instagram posts, my first post was horrible, horrible to the point it got deleted. And the coach I was working with at the time said, "Let me show you Canva. Canva is gonna be your best friend. You should start using that." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even know that existed. Thanks." And then with reels, same thing. And now I'm doing this 30-day yoga challenge with I'm on day what 29 now. Day one,
Yeah.
when I was trying to set everything up and all that, it was a mess trying to figure it out. Now everything's already set up. It's like clockwork. I can do it, do my post, do all that stuff within like 30 minutes. It's perfect. I love it. But I had to
Well,
get these first few days.
yes, I wanted to just encourage everybody to go to the website, which will take you to the Instagram or the Facebook. And that challenge is on both of them. And it's so powerful to watch that and to be inspired by that. So definitely check that part of it out. It's really cool.
Yeah. The
So
reason why I
I've been watching along.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
started that because 2023 is going to be a huge year for, well, 2022 is huge already. 2023 is going to be huge in totally different ways. And I really wanted to be grounded in myself. And I had a limiting belief that I could not have my own home yoga practice. And I was sitting with it and I was like, well, why not? Why
Mm,
can't I have space? I know how to do it. I literally could just do it. So
mm.
I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try. And I know for me, I need external like accountability to be able to complete it. If I wish I was that person who just needed that internal engine, that's not me yet. Maybe later, but for now, I need the external accountability. So I created it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is really interesting, right? Because this is the next part of the process, really, that you're talking about. You go through burnout. Anyone goes through burnout. We go through. We do things we don't want to do. We end up in a position where we're like, we got to rethink this. And you go into the unknown of like, I'm letting go of what I do know, and I'm just ready to consider what I might know. And you learn about yourself and then to build those new habits of being that new self really takes effort, right? It really like, you can't just go like, well, I think I'm just going to be different now.
Mhm.
So here we go. Like that you need to put some things in place because you practiced being that other person. I always describe it as a super highway in your brain, compared to like a little jaggedy bike path in your brain, right? Those new thoughts are kind of going off the side of the cliff a little. They're like trying to make sense, but they don't yet. They don't have any repetitiveness to them. They don't have any practice to them yet. But those practiced thoughts about this is the way I'm going to serve the world, and I went to school for all this time to be X, Y, and Z, and now I'm not going to be that. Those are all practiced thoughts that can lead you someplace you don't want to go.
Exactly.
So I love that you're talking about practicing the future, you know?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
I knew that this is something I wanted to do. And when I have children, I literally envision myself and my kids in the living room or in my office where I do it now, doing yoga together. And I'm like, if I want to do that, I need to start now developing the practice. So that's what I'm doing.
I love that. What a great image that is. Like doing yoga with little kids around you. Like, this is what we do. This is how we
Mhm.
live life. So that's a
This is
great
who we
thing to
are.
pass on. That's a great thing to pass on. Yeah. And what a great way to pass on the value of valuing yourself. Like,
Yes.
there are ways you're going to find that you love valuing yourself. So if it's get a massage, get a massage. If it's do yoga, right? I love that.
Yeah, that valuing yourself is so important because as I naturally am a caregiver, I have people pleasing tendencies. So it's very easy for me to externalize that value, that joy, giving it to someone else rather than keeping it and giving it to myself. So I want to make sure that I am deeply understanding of what I need for me to have the
Mm,
joy, to have my own value, to cultivate the things that I need so that my children are able to do that. And that once when I am giving, not just my children, anyone is able to do that. And so that I am giving not from a place of just like, oh, well, I got to do it. Yeah, no, I'm sure, let's do it. I'm full, I'm happy. Let's do
mm.
whatever you need to do. I can give from a different place. And that's what I want to do.
That is such a great point. That is such a great point. That sort of releasing the resistance around the things that we're bringing into our lives. I think a lot of times, certainly it's happened with me, and I think it happens with a lot of people. There are certain things that are like we know they're good for us, and so we're like, ah, okay, I have to do
Yeah.
that. No, you don't. But you might want to. And if you want to, then you might as well get on board.
Mm-hmm.
So that's beautiful. That's what a great sort of opening up that is, and a way to really refocus on yourself, really do the thing that we're talking about today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even though burnout initially was a terrible thing, do not recommend. Hopefully, find another path if you need to refocus on yourself. It My burnout really helped me to come into this new chapter of Tanielle Brew. Well, now Tanielle Brew Smith eventually, but it has really helped me to come into this new chapter of me, and I would not trade it. So when you get to the point of having gratitude for the bad experiences, you know you're in a good spot.
That's great. That is so great. Well, tell us a little bit about what you've got going on now. I know you have the challenge, the free challenge you're doing. What else have you got going on for everybody?
Yes. So I have a business called Brew Wellness Collective. So Brew, like my last name, Wellness Collective. My website is listed below, brewwellnesscollective.com. I am doing one-on-one coaching, 6 and 12 week packages. And I was just thinking today I might come up with some other little freebies soon. So check me out. You can go to my website or on Instagram, Brew Wellness Collective, either one, to find out what I decide to do. I'm very spontaneous. But I really love helping and coaching people who are also burned out and overwhelmed professionals to show that there is another side to this, that burnout is not the norm. It doesn't have to be the default, that we can create a life that is sustainable and that is joy filled and pleasure filled. And that's what I want for people. So if you want to join me there, I also have a retreat coming up. I'm collaborating with another one of my fellow colleagues. We were going to do it in January, but we decided that we want to broaden it. So we're going to move it to March. So actually, we haven't even fully announced that. So we'll tell you about the date for that soon. But again, you can check out my website or Instagram and we will let you know all about that. And again, my challenge is going. We're on day 29. I'll be posting the day 29 workout after I'm done with this amazing interview. But yeah, just follow me on my website. There is a promo about 20 morning routine 20 self-care morning routine that you can sign up for on the website. And if there's any questions or any collaborations that anybody wants to do, please join me.
That's great. That's great. And that retreat that you're running, that's focused on learning to rest and kind of restore the body. Is that what that
Yes,
is?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the Rest and Restore Wellness Retreat. We have amazing experts coming in. We have another person coming in actually to do yoga. She has actually done private yoga with me, and I adore her. We have an intimacy coach coming in. Of course, I'll be doing some coaching at the end. And we have another psychologist coming in to talk about self-care, coping. The food is going to be delish. Hopefully, my own personal chef will be one of the people doing the breakfast. And then we have a vegan lunch. And even more wonderful surprises planned. It's a day retreat, so it's not your whole weekend, but it's really a day to focus in on you. You can come in and out of any aspect of the retreat because we'll have space. If you want to just relax and judge and not even worry about what people are talking about, no worries. Just relax and lay out for a bit and come back in when you're ready. So it's really a retreat for people to decompress from everything that's going on and to really reconnect with whatever it is they need in that moment.
I love that. That's so great. Now you're down here in Florida. I just moved to Florida. You're down in Florida, aren't you? You're in Jacksonville. Is that right? Is that
Yes,
where that
I'm in
retreat is? Yeah.
Jacksonville. Where are
Yes.
you?
I just moved near Tampa, north of Tampa by about a half an hour. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you. I like it. I really like it here. I went, it was a chance. I didn't know. I'm a northerner, but I'm a northerner that never, ever, ever liked the winter. So I'm not a very good northerner.
Yeah. Well, this week you got a
So
reminder of what cold is a little bit.
yeah, I did not like it. No,
No, it's
I did
horrible.
not like it. I was looking at the map going, where could I go for a week? Maybe I could go to Mexico or someplace warm. Miami, I don't know.
Exactly.
But that is so great. That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all about that. And I do want to remind our listeners to go take the quiz, right? To go take the quiz at roadmaptomorejoy.com. It's a joy quiz. It's super fun. It's simple. It's a 2-minute quiz, 11 questions. You go tick, tick, tick. You look at pictures. It's kind of fun. And it really gives you a sense like what we're talking about in terms of geography and feelings, right? How do we do that? How do we relate those two things? Well, that's what I've done. I've made a map that has places on it. So you land in a place and that place represents feelings. And actually, it's super personal to me in that those are the feelings that I had when I was in those places. And hopefully it will be a good map for you to understand where you are and how to get to someplace different, how to go from that spot on the roadmap to someplace else. So please enjoy that. And I just so thank you for being here today, Tanielle. It's really amazing to have you. And I'm so excited about your new journey. I feel like a lot of times people go into the coaching business and they are bringing with them this amazing background, and now it's accessible to people who would never have had access to you. So thank you for the work that you do and for being here with me today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. We'll see you guys next time.